So I was diagnosed with Tourette's, OCD, and ADD when I was younger. My very first YouTube channel that I'd worked on for like 2 years, I just got banned from it, and the only way to fix it was to start a new channel. And a feeling of anxiety is a feeling, and if you can learn to feel it and sit with it, even though it's really difficult, rather than always trying to fight it, exposing myself to situations that I was scared of, my brain started rewiring not to have anxiety in those moments. And it goes back to, I was scared of literally being in a car with my fiance, because if we got stuck in a traffic jam, I just would be like, I'm in this small space. I don't know what it was. Anxiety is there to protect you, but in our modern world, our anxiety can come up in ways where it shouldn't.
Welcome to Under the Surface podcast. Together with Original Penguin and Calm, the campaign against living miserably, we're on a mission to challenge the stigma surrounding mental health. Our journey takes us to an important place from our guests' lives, which has helped them navigate through tough times. Tune in as we hear from voices in music, sport, and entertainment who are ready to reveal the private battles behind their public personas. Join us as we go under the surface. So you might have noticed that we are on location. That is because we are traveling the podcast up and down the country this year to locations that mean a lot to our guests. And importantly, we are also on YouTube this season, so make sure you check us out. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Under the Surface podcast. Delighted to say on the podcast today a man whose introduction is quite complicated actually. He is a monster in the YouTube space, a pioneer, he's an entrepreneur, a mental health advocate. It is Caspar Lee. Caspar, I could have gone on really because you are known for so many things. Were you happy with that intro?
I think it sounded good. That was a fair one. It sounds almost like I'm full of shit when you say all of those things. But you know, it's okay.
You have had an amazing career so far, and obviously you will continue to do so with the amount of business ventures you're involved in, which we'll go on to talk about. But let's start, as we always do, sort of in the early days, your childhood and growing up, what that was like.
Yeah, 100%. So I grew up in South Africa, but I was actually born in London. So we moved there in 1995, which was a year after, I think Nelson Mandela came in 94, if I remember correctly. And so it was an exciting time for the country. And my parents didn't actually have that much relation to South Africa. My mom, her mother lived there for a little bit. But they were kind of English-Irish.
Right, okay.
Or Anglo-Irish. And but they moved there because my mom's the kind of person who will just like, when she gets an idea, she'll just do it.
Really? Spontaneous,
for the better or worse sometimes.
Okay.
But this one was for the better because I think growing up in South Africa, like the amount of sport you can play, even kind of the schools I was able to go to, I just think it really kind of helped me just be like a happy child, especially, going through some of the things I went through. Like, I think having that lifestyle was a lot better than being in the rain in London.
Really? Interesting, yeah.
No offense if you grew up in London. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, just outside London, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very rainy, yeah. It was rainy, yeah. No offense. I know what you mean.
I'm sure that you got something positive out of it.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Thanks to my parents. I love your upbringing, by the way. They do listen to this. Was that a big part of your creativity? Because one thing I think about you is you're very creative in all aspects of your life, from YouTube to entrepreneurial. Did that foundation help you go on to do what you did, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the creative stuff comes from like my mom and dad. Like they were originally editors in Soho, in the 70s or 80s. And then they always kind of identified themselves as creatives. And then my sister was very much into drama. She studied drama at university, and I was never good at drawing or. I did drama and I thought I was okay at it. Yeah. But I think my way of being creative was more entrepreneurial. Like I was, my mom had a chocolate factory. Again, she does everything. She's very spontaneous. She had a chocolate factory. And so I remember being like 12 years old and helping her like sell the chocolates at the local market. Yeah. And then I realized that, one day we had a bunch of books in the house that weren't being used. So like I literally created a book stand next to the chocolate stand, to try and just sell them, basically stealing from my parents, so they were okay with it, selling their books at 100% margin. So I think the creative stuff was like, I almost had to learn how to be creative to be an entrepreneur, if that makes sense, because that was the way I thought I could do something big. And then I love always also trying to be like the class clown. I don't know if I was ever very successful at it, but I love the idea of making people laugh. And I think you have to be, I think, creative to make jokes.
Yeah, so. I know what you mean. That's very interesting. That and a big part of your childhood, which is again one of the reasons you wanted to come on this podcast to talk about, is you were diagnosed with Tourette Syndrome at the age of 6. Am I right in thinking?
Yeah. So I didn't know what Tourette's was until I got it. And so I think at 6, not many kids do. No. And so basically, I started making noises while we were watching television with my sister. I started making like these kind of grunting noises, and she was just like getting really angry at me, and so she like went to my dad and was like, he just won't stop doing this. And it was kind of a strange moment, but my dad kind of knew what it was.
Really?
Because he does kind of Tourette type things. Right. He was never fully diagnosed, but he understood. He's like, oh, the idea that, you know, his son like had impulses to do things like that. So he kind of got that. And then my mom, again, being the person she is, like instantly jumped onto it and took me to people to speak about it with. And then fairly soon realized it was Tourette Syndrome. You know, I also kind of have OCD. I have a bit of ADD. All these things do kind of come together. So I was diagnosed with Tourette's, OCD, and ADD when I was younger. And I think between 6 and 12, it was mostly kind of manageable. Yeah. But then when you go through hormones and stuff like that, and then going into high school where you're trying to impress girls and all sorts of things, then it definitely became a lot more difficult. And so I had I had an experience like once where I was like whistling in class and had to you know, be told to do my work outside class. Because I was distracting the other kids. And then all the teachers who saw me outside class just assumed I was this naughty guy.
Because they didn't know the reason why.
They didn't know why I was out. And so I got this like, reputation for always being kicked out of class. Some of the teachers in South Africa at that time, you know, I lived in a small town. They didn't understand what it was. And so they almost thought I was taking the piss. Because I think with Tourette's, you can look at kids or even adults who are you know, either taking physically and think maybe that, you know, they're doing something strange to try, but then when someone does something verbally, it's really hard for people to understand that they're not just doing it to disrupt. And so luckily my Tourette's was mostly physical, so things like bobbing my head, kind of clicking my neck, stretching my leg. But there were times when it was slightly verbal. Actually, there was another story where in South Africa we don't live, you know, we're not fully around animals all the time, because I think some people think South Africa you live in a game park. But we did go to a game park once, and there was this elephant that was like really close to our car, and then our car broke down, and everyone was told to like keep quiet. And at that point, I decided I needed to make monkey noises. Wow. And so,
how did your family react?
And they're just like, shut the at that point, I don't think they were being very sensitive to me, just trying to shut me up. But it's you know, I look back, I laugh. I'm lucky today that I'm, you know, some people with Tourette's, it gets kind of worse and worse, or it doesn't get any better. Some people it does. For me, I go days without even kind of thinking about it. But it definitely was a huge part of my childhood.
It's interesting you say that, and a lot of that is a misconception from a lack of education from teachers who might have just presumed you were being naughty because they don't know the situation. So I think before we move on to talk about any further, it's important to ask you what Tourette's is and how you define it, because we've covered a range of very deep topics on this podcast, but Tourette's isn't one that we have covered. So just for the viewer's perspective, can you just give us an insight into what Tourette's is?
So Tourette Syndrome is basically a neurological kind of condition where you I guess the best way to describe it is having like an itch you that never goes away unless you scratch it, and that itch could be one of your tics. So it could be stretching your arm, and you need to do that every now and then to feel like satisfied that you don't need to do it anymore. And it's almost like if you've ever had a thought that won't ever go away, or maybe some people experience it with OCD, where there's like maybe a piece of paper on the ground and you just can't do anything until you pick it up.
Right.
And so, people with Tourette's, like 90% of them have like physical Tourette's, where it's these movements. But then like the mainstream version of Tourette's that everyone kind of knows from South Park and so on is like people swearing and saying inappropriate things. And again, it's almost like it's like when you're told not to press the red button.
Yeah,
it's like that feeling.
Yeah.
And for people with Tourette's, it's like it's impossible not to eventually do it. And so when they're in situations where they are told not to do it, that's when it's at its worst.
Right.
And when you're just like relaxing, or maybe you're getting like, for me, I got really interested in like gaming because I would never think about it while I was gaming.
Right, okay, so it was like an escape for you.
Yeah, when you're in flow, and then even like being at home like on YouTube and becoming like this. When I was like 15, I like got obsessed with YouTube and the internet, and that I would never even think about my tics when I was there. But you know, when you're in an auditorium full of other people and everyone's been told to be quiet, then you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I understand that. And the tics are that's how you refer to them as tics, right?
Yeah, you call people with Tourette's have Tourette's, and then you call them tics. I believe that's the name.
What was the sort of hardest part of the early parts, the diagnosis? Because when you get a diagnosis at the age of 6. Yeah, I mean, I've got a 3-year-old, 4-year-old boy now. You're such an early age of development. There's so much you're still learning about the world. You're only 6 years old at the time. So did you even fully understand what you were being told by the doctor at the time? Yeah, I think what is nice is when you know what it is. I think I've heard some people, I don't know if it's Lewis Capaldi, I remember watching his documentary, and he has Tourette's and he didn't know what it was. And that's almost more scary. And so, it is obviously a thing when you're being diagnosed. It's, it's not life-threatening. You don't have a choice. And so I think you're just kind of happy that at least you know what it is, and then you can speak to people about dealing with it, and then maybe there's medication you can look at. And so, I think looking back, I don't remember like having like this like week of thinking about it. I think the kind of guy who, when I get news, I just have to get on with it. Right. Okay. But I think it's one of those things that while it's not easy, I'm kind of happy I have it, like, because I think I've learned so much about life by going through that, and then there's again so many other things that you could have that are more challenging. That's an amazing way to look at it. Actually, was the puberty months, say, going into your teens, were they the hardest because of the physical developments you're having with your body, and at the time when you're looking to make relationships with partners, and was that the trickiest moment, would you say? Yeah, I think that's, for a lot of people in general, you're just more, you get more mood swings. You're like, everything's all over the place. You're in high, you're figuring out how to become an adult. All these things come together, and I think just for people with Tourette's, like going through hormones is when it really kind of is at its height, and it definitely was the case for me. And it's when you're going on a date with someone, that's like kind of the kind of real. What were those moments like then when you were going on a date? I mean, I guess I do my best to. I think I would do my best not to like do my head nodding while I was, especially maybe I'd choose to go somewhere like a film where maybe they won't see me. Right. Oh, okay. Things like that. You come up with ways. Would you say that you had that condition earlier, or would you not breach that topic? It's a good. I think it depends on the person. I think I probably wouldn't say it out of nowhere, and then I'd wait for them to ask, and then I would tell them. Is how I remember doing it. But then as things progressed, as like I think even just as time has moved on, I think I've become more confident with letting people know earlier. And I think hopefully now, if I was young today, I don't know what it's like exactly, but I'm hoping it's different. I'm hoping more kids understand what these things are. And that's why I like talking about it as well, because I think there was this this football goalkeeper for the US team who my mom told me had Tourette's. Tim Howard. Yeah. And I'm not, he's got Tourette's. Yeah. So I remember that just being a massive huge story. Thing for me. And when that people like that have Tourette's, I think you can kind of wear it with pride. And so Lewis Capaldi, Billie Eilish, all these amazing people are talking about it. So I think young people with Tourette's
probably hopefully aren't as nervous about opening up.
Do you know what's amazing about that is I have very little knowledge of Tourette's and don't have Tourette's, but I'm a type 1 diabetic, and a lot of what you said I resonated so much to there when you were talking about you didn't really want to talk about it in the early days. I was the same. I was injecting in private and not letting floor managers on live TV shows know I've got it, which looking back on it is so dangerous to my own health and to other people's as well if they don't know how to what to do for me. And actually I can't talk about it enough now because of the young kids that message me going, thank you for raising awareness of this. But the other thing that struck me is all of the famous athletes with Tourette's, like I know all the famous athletes with type 1 because I get such a buzz from seeing Jake O'Brien is a type 1 diabetic, plays for Everton. He made his Premier League debut last weekend, and it's no one knows that he's a type 1, but in the diabetic community he's like a legend because of that. And it's interesting how you look at that in exactly the same way with Tourette's.
100%. And that's why I think it's so nice that we live in a world where people open up about these things. And I just think growing up when my dad grew up, not even probably knowing what it was, knowing no one who had it, that's so difficult. And so that's why I love being open about it. And I also think with these things, especially it's kind of a mental disorder in a way, you also have positives that come out of it. Like, I think being very...
Like a perspective on life.
You have a perspective on life in terms of like just being happy when things are normal. Rather than always craving that next big thing. But then also just like, I think a lot of people with Tourette's are like really talented at something because of it. And I don't know,
really?
I can't...
That's interesting.
I just, the amount of times I meet someone with Tourette's who's like either really smart or really creative. And I think sometimes it's just, maybe it's because that's their escape, or maybe partly because that's how someone with Tourette's' brain works.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How important was your family network there? Because you mentioned your dad a couple of times there. How important was that support network that you had when you were going through the difficult early moments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, but I guess I don't really know what it would be like without it. So I've always had parents who are caring and there for me, and even when they went through a divorce, like I then had a stepfather who came into my life who was amazing, and then my dad remarried and brought the stepmother into my life who was amazing. So, while I've had like this Tourette's challenge, and I've gone through a divorce as I was like 13. I didn't go through my own divorce.
I was going to say, didn't affect dating then, did it? Clearly, divorced at 13.
Going into my second marriage next month. I still had a very happy childhood, like super, and I think that's, again, it's like living in South Africa, not living just outside London, made it all.
I did have a great childhood, just to clarify that. Thanks, Mike
and so but it is, I like the fact that it wasn't all perfect as well, because it's a story and it's something like it makes life more interesting.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that as well, and it's like through adversity comes positivity a lot of the time. Do you mind me asking about the family network then? Because again, that would have been your parents' divorce. How difficult was that with everything else you were dealing with at the time?
Again, I think I have this thing where I hear bad news. It's almost like I'm more scared of bad news coming than when it actually comes. Right. And when bad news comes in my life, I kind of just accept it very quickly and then try and work out how to make the most of it.
Is that something you learned how to do? Or is
I don't know. Maybe it was to do with things like the divorce and stuff. And then realizing that a lot of those bad things turn out to be really good, and I wouldn't be where I am without a lot of them. Like getting that, obviously having a divorce sucks, like going from parents who thought will, be together forever, then all of a sudden, like it was very quick. But then having the stepfather who just brought this whole new, being a very different type of father figure.
Right, okay.
Almost my dad was always he's a lovely man, he's the kindest man, but he's very soft.
Right.
And I think at that time in my life, having the stepfather come in he'd been a father to 5 kids before me.
Okay, yeah.
He's an Irishman, he's a bit older, and he was very strong. And it was nice to see and have that kind of father figure in my life. So I kind of instantly saw the opportunity as well. It sounds crazy saying there's an opportunity with divorce, but it's an opportunity for my parents to be happier for the rest of their lives.
That's an amazing way you look at that, yeah.
And then
positive way you look at that. Yeah,
and then for 2, like the, for me, like just having these other people in my life who could be good. And then there's so many. I think jumping forward a few years, there's times where the worst things I think in the world at that moment turned out to be the very best. And there was this time when I had my very first YouTube channel that I'd worked on for like 2 years. And I got to like 1,000 subscribers. I got a verification badge, which meant I was part of the partnership program at YouTube. You could make a, like £50 a year maybe, but what I wanted was the ability to have my own banner. I don't know, this was before YouTube. So you could customize your own banner, and which was massive at the time. That's all I thought that mattered. And then I had done something to a friend like a couple days before where I pissed him off a lot. We don't have to go into that. And then so he retaliated by click bombing my adverts.
I remember reading the story. It was quite a big story at the time, wasn't it? Wait, is this because you have told it?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think people knew about it at the time.
No, exactly. I wish it was a big. If it was a big story
but
at the time.
Now because you've mentioned
exactly.
Give context for people that don't know this story.
Yeah, so my friend clicked my adverts, which meant that I got banned from the YouTube partner program because they assumed that I was clicking my own ads. It was very unsophisticated at the time. And I couldn't call up YouTube because I had 1,000 subscribers and I was 16 living in South Africa. And so I just got banned from it. And the only way to fix it was to start a new channel. And I was so angry. I'd lost this channel that I thought was the coolest thing ever. But it turns out I was playing this weird character who no one really was resonating with other than me. And so when I started a new channel, I went to my real voice because I used to have this voice because I was so embarrassed.
And it's I think the key thing was your new channel's your own name, right?
Exactly, my own name, my own voice. I wasn't playing a character because there was this guy who came before me called Fred, who I was inspired by. Like, hi, it's Fred, and it's strange. If you Google Fred, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I was inspired by him. I did that. It never worked. I became myself. And at this point, I knew how to edit. I knew what people cared about. And then within literally a few months, I got to 10,000 subscribers.
Which is amazing.
Which after
a lot of YouTube said that the first bit of growth is the hardest, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I collaborated and got those 10. I learned how to build something through collaboration. And that was reaching out to people. I managed to convince people like Jack's Gap, who people might remember, to Pointless Blog, to Zoe Sugg, to all these people to collaborate with me. And then from there went to 10,000 to 100 to 1 million. And then, within 2 years of restarting the channel, had a pretty successful YouTube career and was doing it full time. And so that was that really taught me these bad things can be so good.
Interesting. By the way, you're massively underselling yourself because I speak to a lot of YouTubers and the growth that you had is incredible. And that's obviously down to your hard work and your talent. But it's amazing how you look at that as a positive in a way, your channel getting strikes or strips effectively. Yeah. But long term, you think that had a big positive impact, even though at the time you were fuming about it.
Yeah, because it's so hard to make... I think it's so hard to make really big decisions when things are going well. And so you'll just kind of stick with it. And even though, in my perspective, 1,000 subscribers was well. But and so you could be doing something in life and you just carry on. But if something really bad comes in or something has to change and you have no control over it, I'm not saying it always is going to be better, but a lot of times it can turn out to be better. So as soon as it happens, try and accept it, and then look for opportunities. Because
what would you say is the secret to your success with YouTube? Because you've had incredible success there. Would you put it down to collaborations? Would you put it down to the creative? Is it a mix of everything?
You got two of my 3 C's: collaborations, creative, and consistency.
Okay.
But I think I also add timing to it,
I think the upload of certain videos and things.
Oh no, actually the timing in which I did it, I think it was a very exactly. It was a unique time to get into something. Yeah, I know what you mean. And that's again when it comes to building businesses now and investing and stuff. It's so much around timing. You could do something way too early or way too late, but I think it was the absolute perfect moment, being the right age for it at the right time. I mean, the fact that I was 16 when I started, and by the time I was 18, I was just doing it professionally, which meant I didn't need to worry about having a job because I was just as I turned 18, I started making my first few £100s, and it turned into 3,000. And then by the time I moved to London, I said to my parents, look, I want to do this. I'm not going to go to university. They wanted me to go to university. But I was like, if I can pay for myself for a year, can I just do it? And they're like, okay.
Right.
And so that timing, again, if I wasn't making just enough to do that, I probably would have gone to university and not been able to.
I was going to ask about what the reaction was from your family, because our sort of parents and grandparents' generation, they didn't grow up on YouTube. So when I speak to so many YouTubers, when they say to their family, I want to become a YouTuber, it's almost like, well, what is that for a start? Is it a viable profession? And there's obviously thousands of kids now that want to do it. But what was the reaction? Were they anxious that you are potentially, because you're an intelligent guy, not going to pursue, in their mind, a traditional career, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it was a bit tough because, I actually... The way I went to my school was I won an academic scholarship because it was more of like a general knowledge IQ test than a study test. I've always been terrible at studying, and so I got the scholarship. Then I did okay because I was terrible at studying, and then by the time I got to my final years, I wasn't doing very well at school because I was literally just doing YouTube. I didn't study for my final exams.
Didn't you?
At all, because I was just doing YouTube.
Because you knew that at that point YouTube.
Either I knew or it was my way of not studying. I was like, I'm going to prioritize this because I hate learning things in that way. I love learning from things I care about or in my own way, but the way school was set up didn't work for me. Anyway, so I kind of, without them having much of a choice, I mean, I would have still gotten into university, would have still been able to do it, but they could really tell I wasn't putting this was not where I was going to have success in life. And I think they were smart enough. And again, my stepdad was open-minded enough to kind of go for it. And I think this was when you could see where this world was going. But you would have to look very closely. And so because they saw me doing it every day, because I showed them the numbers, I showed them Google sending me a check to my house. There's stuff around that at if an 18-year-old is showing you that, I think it's enough to go on. It's not too much of a risk. And that's also the best time to take risks like this in life, is when you're younger, when you don't have dependents and so on. So I did that. And even, it's quite interesting, even when I got to 5 million subscribers and I was traveling the world, I was making documentaries and doing tours and all sorts of things. All of that was going so well. I'd still randomly go somewhere, meet people, and I'd say, they would say, what do you do for a living? And I'd say, I'm a YouTuber. And they'd be like, so what do you actually do to make money?
I've heard that story so many times.
And so that was also it's crazy how long it took for the world to actually understand. So having parents who understood, I think, is not, as I say, they had enough data points to not be completely crazy and just hope. But at the same time, they were forward thinking. And funny, the harder one to convince was my grandmother, because she really couldn't understand.
Bless.
But when she saw me meet the Queen, then that was the moment. I was like, what about all of the? I mean, I've managed to invest in property. I managed to do this all because of YouTube. But it was only when I met the Queen that you actually thought.
Can I just say what a name drop that is? By the way, just name drop. What was that like? What was that moment like?
I mean, the first time.
Oh wow!
No.
Not even asked about it. You mentioned it twice. Go on, fair play.
I can't stop talking. You won't let me. I'll talk about this for the next 40 minutes. Don't get me started. But no, she was really funny. Yeah.
Amazing.
Really cool.
Amazing.
Cool
I think that's shifting a lot now though, with people saying I'm a YouTuber. It's catching on with older generations. People know that it's a huge market, but it's just fascinating hearing that from you and the reaction that people were having when you had that amount of success early on. How difficult was it for you doing what you were doing? You just said there you started YouTube at 16, right? Yeah. With Tourette's, with everything you were going through, with your mental health, you're putting yourself out there on a platform where you can literally read all the comments, and the bigger you're getting, the more people are talking about you, talking about how you look, how you sound, everything. People talk about everything on social media. Was that challenging for you, or was it an escape for you?
I saw it as I get very I think the Tourette's, the OCD, you get very obsessed with things, and I just saw it as it was so exciting to see that growth. And every now and then you make something and someone, a lot, you do also get negative comments. But I read enough, I watched enough other YouTubers to understand that was part of it. And when you get 10,000 comments, there's going to be a percentage. And even the ones who are commenting are usually a minority of people who are really, no offense to people who hopefully comment on this video, but you're really into it. And so the likelihood of you doing a negative comment is more likely than someone who's just passively watching and actually enjoys the content. Anyway, so I think I kind of, I don't think I got that much negative hate. Like, I think there's something with me. I don't know. I just didn't manage to become that person who was ever targeted.
Yeah, I know. But your videos aren't controversial, are they? I
think it was that. I think I never became like the number one YouTube. I was always like second, third, or fourth on the group. Yeah. And I think when you're not the one on top, maybe people are less likely to go after you. Yeah. I think being a guy as well, I think women on social media get it way worse.
I know what you mean.
Like the different standards. Yeah, I of course there was things I did, like there were videos I made where I uploaded them and then like the hate I would get. It was also during like this diss track period.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
remember.
Which
was massive, wasn't it?
Diss track. Huge.
Blew up with Sidemen and everything.
Exactly, yeah. and I was, every now and then you make a video and you're just like instantly you can see like the comments coming in and you're like, this was probably a mistake. But I don't know. It's just you deal with it. Like you learn from the comments. You also got to be careful not to like learn too much from the comments.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I was lucky not to experience too much.
It's a very positive way of looking. You seem to have had what I'm learning from this is positive outlook on life from a very early age with everything. The way you're talking about comments, the way you handled the diagnosis of Tourette's, your parents' divorce. It's interesting how you've always used even negative situations to create a positive aspect of your life, really.
Yeah, I think you kind of you have to, and even now I think when there's something, and this is something I learned through kind of working through anxiety, is like stuff that I'm really scared of or I don't like that's the stuff I need to just face as quickly as possible, and it just makes you stronger, and you also get used to things, I think, quite quickly, like. And so if you go through hard things or you're getting a bunch of hate comments on a video, I think it makes you stronger if it doesn't completely break you. So I definitely don't recommend leaving a bunch of hate comments on this video because I will be very sad. And I know I sound quite like big and strong on this podcast, but when I'm at home alone at 12 o'clock reading the comments, I get very upset.
Yes, please don't. Yeah. The other sort of bit of props I'll give you about your channel, because I've consumed a lot of your content, but I almost felt your channel was very unique at the time, if you know what I mean. Like there was a lot of people doing FIFA vids or skills vids or that kind of stuff. You did a lot of very unique content, but you also collaborated with what I would say is your traditional YouTubers. So you mentioned like Josh Peters, Zoella Josiah, KSI, but you also had a lot of the mainstream who you didn't usually see on YouTube. I mean, you had like Ed Sheeran on your channel, Liam Payne, Jack White. Also, was that a strategy that you had at the time to collaborate with people who were big in the space, but also people that were sort of seen outside of the space as well, or did they come about through your success, would you say?
Yeah, so I figured out that some of the marketing teams of places like Sony and just people who are releasing films or songs, they wanted to access a younger audience. And so I kind of got in touch, or my management team got in touch with those people, and when they had press junkets, I would be one of the press. That's very normal today now to have creators doing this.
You get 10 minutes slot and
10 minute slots.
15-minute people come in. Yeah.
But my strategy there was I was the only creator doing that at the time because no one was thinking about that at that point. Clever. And the second part was I don't want it to look like a press junket. Yeah. So even if it was a press junket, one of my rules was like we couldn't have any branding behind of the actual movie. It had to. We could do it in the hotel room because I know they're busy. Yeah. But I wanted to make it feel like this is just someone's house.
Can I ask you, how did you get that over the line though? Because I've through my job been to a lot of press junkets, and you do. For those that don't know, there's two chairs. You don't even bring camera ops. So you have two camera ops. You're given an SD card. You have 10 minutes with said actor. Someone else does. But it is shot the same on everything. But how? And a big part of that is they are trying to promote the film, so the branding is important. So how do you get that over the line that we're not going to have any of your branding there?
No, it's a really good, question. At the first it was a timing thing. I got the team also to explain that this video will do a lot better if it feels like these people are my friends.
Authentic.
And let's try and make it feel like that. The second thing was at the time, I look back, like my videos, and I didn't kind of push my weight around at the time. I think I managed to get things over the line because the videos were getting like 5 million to like 7 million views each, which looking back, I'm like, that's crazy. So even though I didn't go, oh, well, take it or leave it, I think they were just doing it because it was a big opportunity compared to, even though traditional media is amazing, they weren't reaching those numbers.
Yeah.
And so it was a combination of, they wanted probably to have their talent on the channel, and they actually knew it would do better if it looked that way. And it was, I think those videos then did really well because, you to have Kevin Hart on a YouTuber's channel was like, this is the first time he was doing it. Now he's collaborating with not everyone, but he did do a lot of collabs afterwards.
I do know what you mean.
And after a while, it did then lose its touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun period. And it was also inspired by, there was this kid, I can't remember his name, but there was this kid who used to like lip sing big songs and he was like this kid, and he would do it in his room with the celebrity or musician. Anyway, I think he did it before me. So but I kind of took that, instead of just lip singing, I'll do interviews. And it was really fun, but it was really nerve-wracking as well. Like I got sick like a couple days before, like from the nerves. Did you? And it wasn't you. It's like it's one, you're meeting someone who's really cool and a celebrity, and you like don't want to mess it up. But it's also, it was rooms like we're kind of in today, where there's a ton of people in the room.
Sorry about that. There's a lot of people.
It's fine. But luckily, I didn't know this was going to be the case.
Paul, get out.
But the problem with those rooms are, you had like PR people who are like, they think it's their job to like step in and like make you scared. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you're doing these people are just terrifying.
I've got to say something each moment.
But luckily, 99% of the celebrities were really nice. Either they're really nice people or they can be nice in those moments. I had one or two which was really awkward.
Did you? Any you can share or?
I wouldn't say who it was, but I remember like I was so nervous and like I pitched an idea of like, can they like do some little like sing a little something for like 5 seconds, and like you could see I was like almost sweating and I was red in the face, and that she was just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Really?
Rather than, no, I'm not doing that because of this, or no, I'm not doing that.
Wow.
And that was like. Whew. But then there was this guy with her, so it was two of them I was interviewing. So maybe you can work it out. I can
work this out as it narrows down, It was a rom-com.
I'll make it a little bit easier.
2004.
Then it was easier. Justin Timberlake was the guy with her. Oh shit, this is whatever. I'm sure she's a nice person having a bad day. And this is so long ago. But he then was so nice, and he's like, I'll do it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And that made it better, but that was one of the weird ones. I was like, geez, this is hectic.
Interesting, yeah. And when you get one of those sort of, I suppose, Hollywood stars on your channel or A-listers, does that help then get another one over the line? Because then you can literally say to PR company, they go, what do you mean we don't want branding? What do you mean you want to do this here? And you go, well, here's me and Kevin Hart.
Exactly. And that's momentum.
Snowball effects.
And that's like, that momentum works with YouTube, but also I brought that into business and investing and everything. Like, when you can get your first one, it can be so good. And so actually I would have them reach out to... So Ed Sheeran actually saw me do a video with Maisie Williams, and then he asked to as part of his promotional tour to do it. And he actually just came to my house.
Yeah, so I've seen that video. That's the Brain Freeze video with Ed Sheeran, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's incredible. You in the bath and everything. Yeah. He reached out to you to come on your channel.
He reached out... because he saw the Maisie Williams thing, and I think he's a really smart guy. You'll notice when he did a lot of these promotional things, rather than just going to the mainstream places, he liked to be. I think as part of his strategy was to be found in like these random, interesting places, be it like a 23-year-old YouTuber's channel like me, or like he would just go. He knew he was big enough not to need to go on the biggest platform. Because
he's a genius, isn't he?
Yeah, the views would come to it anyway because the algorithm would serve it to people. And this is like the height of his career. And
that was for Castle on the Hill, that video.
Yeah, exactly.
Massive, and Shape of You, like two huge songs.
It was crazy, and he just came. And I think the other thing, his one thing, I remember talking to him about, he said he wanted to do it, one, because, he thought it was cool that I was doing this stuff, but two, he thought I wouldn't be the kind of guy who gets nervous around him. Right. But actually, that is exactly the kind of guy I am. So then when he said that, I'm like, okay, shit. And because I think he's also quite a young guy. Yeah. I think he gets it, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah, he had scenario. I don't think he likes when he's in a room and everyone's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. So he thought I'd just be this really cool guy, because that's how I maybe came across in my videos. Yeah, interesting. So no, to be honest, that wasn't so bad because it was in my house, so I actually had that level of confidence.
That's such a cool story. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I know what you mean. He's very I think he thinks outside the box.
He's a genius. He thinks about it. And it's also nothing's random from what I saw. Like nothing's random with him. No. It's not just like that authenticity and stuff. He's an authentic good guy, but he also he knows how to do it. And every part of what he does is thought about. And he's a really amazing marketer.
He's actually a really good actor as well. Like in your video, just the opening and even when he's walking out at the time, and I've seen a lot of commercials he's done where he's not a bad actor as well.
I think musicians somehow. I think there's something about being a singer, like they know how to act a lot of them too. I don't know. I feel like they can. I just wish. Being a YouTuber translated into being able to sing.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a rendition of something now? No, we'll move on. One thing I was always wanting to ask you is, when you had that, I would describe it as very quick growth early on, did you, what moment did you know YouTube was a career for you? Because it's quite a volatile, it's quite unpredictable to see trends and everything. And there's millions of people now want to be YouTubers. You know, you're part of a small 1% who've made it down to your own creativity and everything. But in the early days, were you anxious that wouldn't become your career? Like, what point was there a video or a moment you knew this was your career?
No, it was definitely not like a big viral video thing. Again, it was every week I would collaborate with someone who was doing well, and then we would both then grow together. And so I think when I was 19, well, by the time I moved overseas from South Africa when I was like 18, 19. And then I think I at some point saw like I had £30,000 in my bank account, and I was like, and that was after I'd paid my rent, and that was after everything, and like that was probably the moment I was like, this is unbelievable. Like this is just more money than I could ever think of, especially when I translate that into rands in South Africa. I was like, holy shit. So I think I saw it pretty quickly, and then. The thing I always questioned though was like, how long can this last? And so even though I was making that money and then it quicker and quicker, I was like, I've got a whole life to think about, and so I never ever went and spent it on anything. I always just put it away and tried to invest, and then as soon as I could, I tried to figure out ways to build a career outside of YouTube, and that's when I about kind of 5 years later, co-founded the company we're sitting in the offices of today, and then co-founded a management company, and then that then became my goal. Is like, how do I turn this career, which is really amazing right now? I know there'll be something around the corner that I can't control. Like, how do I change this into my next opportunity?
Wow. That's amazing that your mindset took you in that direction, though, because I don't think that's common for a lot of young people in your industry. I think it's very easy just to focus on the here and now, and being whether it's a YouTuber, whether it's an influencer presenter, it's very smart thinking that. It brings me perfectly onto the next section, actually, because I want to talk about you as an entrepreneur. I mean, because you haven't uploaded in about 2 years, am I right in thinking?
Something like that.
On a channel with 6.5 million subscribers.
Yeah. Maybe even longer. I think I did upload because I've got engaged 2 years ago. I put that up, but that wasn't really a video. That was just stick that up. But I haven't uploaded in a long time.
So your strategy then, you tell us about where the investment sort of came from, because am I right in thinking you invested down the traditional route before you started becoming an entrepreneur, and with not the success you're having now? Is that right?
Yeah. So the first thing I did was, when I made money, I bought property. Didn't buy it at a very good price. Right. Some of it's actually not made great money. That was like just personal, like apartments and stuff like that to like rent out. That was just so because I thought everyone just said like, if you buy property, you always make money. It's okay. I'm sure most people do make money, but not me. I didn't make anything. Then the second thing I did was, rather than investing money, I became a co-founder of businesses. So investing a lot of time into influencer.com and then MVE.
Tell us a bit, for those that don't know, because you have got business, and I would call it an empire, because you've co-founded a lot of companies. So tell us about the companies that you do have, and also where we're sat now.
So influencer.com was the first one. So I came together with this guy called Ben Jeffries, who's the CEO. And Influencer basically connects brands and creators at scale. So a lot of the ads you'll see on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snap, we've been a part of putting those together. And so we work across offices in London, New York, Dubai, Riyadh, now LA. We're just opening in, and we're doing Berlin, and it's amazing. Like the team's over 150 now, and we work with the world's biggest brands, like from kind of Coca-Cola to Nike to all sorts. And then on the other side of things, is a completely separate business. I started a company called MVE, which is basically a talent management company. I launched that with Endeavor. So they own the UFC, they own WWE, IMG, WME, all sorts of entertainment companies. And we're basically a management business that represents social first talent for the majority. And that's in London and LA. And that's like also really, really doing nicely. And so they are very much related to being a creator. All the businesses, being a creator was such a great experience for me to know how to do it better. And then from the success of that, I also started investing, not in property anymore. I started investing in some startups.
Okay.
And one of the startups is called Face It, which is a gaming platform. It merged and sold for 1.5 billion like 2 years after we invested. So that was like very lucky, but also proved our thesis of we could get into very good deals because we understood social media. So this is me and my cousin Sasha, who were doing this together. And we also brought in other YouTubers, celebs, and people like that. Anyway, long story short, that went really well, and we launched our first fund, which was a $20 million fund, where we had other investors invest in our fund, and that's gone really well. We've invested in companies from 11 Labs to Practica to Beehive to all sorts of amazing businesses, and because of the success of that, there's another exciting opportunity coming that I could speak about within the next kind of month.
That's quite incredible, really. I mean, I have to say, when I came in here, because I was aware of all the companies that you run, but wasn't aware of the scale of them. And just coming here today, I was like, wow, you've clearly done incredibly well building this. What are the difficulties in that? And that I'm looking around in this, well, not this exact room, but your open plan office space. Yeah. There's probably 50, 60 people that you're sort of in charge of, I suppose, or responsible for. Does that come with added pressures as well?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. It's a responsibility, but at the same time, a lot of I personally, the people working here, they could probably get jobs in many companies. They're very smart people. Yeah. So I want to make sure that they stay here. So it's pressure on me to convince them to be happy and to continue to hire the best people. Big part of my role is kind of the vision setting and also very much trying to build the right culture here. And so spending a lot of time on that and making sure people who are like the smartest in the industry want to work at Influencer. I also used to think that I had to kind of try and be the smartest in the room in terms of like prove myself whenever I'm in a meeting. But the coolest thing I've learned is like actually, just ask stupid questions.
Really? Yeah.
And they'll give you really smart responses, and you'll learn a lot from them. And then you just don't need to. When you have a big team, you don't need to be the one saying everything in a meeting. Yeah, you need to let other people speak, and you need to ask some questions. And then you need to make sure once you make a decision, people know that decision. Tell everyone, because the bigger the team gets, the more people go into different directions, and you need to all be on the same page. So there's lots I'm learning from a big team, but enjoying it.
When you started out on YouTube, obviously you said you knew the space, you knew you did your research. It felt like a part of you always knew that was going to be successful. It's interesting how your businesses, you've got a big knowledge in, but obviously when you start off running a business, becoming an entrepreneur, that's a completely different line of work to doing content. Was there anxiety there? Was there self-doubt? Was there what sort of issues were there when you started off? Because I find it incredible how you talk about it with such ease and such I suppose positivity. But it must be difficult starting these businesses from nothing at the time.
I mean, there was definitely imposter syndrome. I felt that interviewing celebrities at first, and then I felt that when you're interviewing a very highly skilled person for a job at your company, you're like, why am I the one who's interviewing you when you're clearly very intelligent. And so I think you learn like imposter syndrome is something that's a natural feeling, and everyone feels. And then when it comes to anxiety and like, before doing a big talk or anything, again, that's a natural thing people feel. Even successful people feel that. And then, consuming podcasts and reading and like learning from other people, and you start to realize these are normal feelings. And then starting to embrace them. But there was a period where I had really difficult anxiety. And I don't know if that wasn't to do with necessarily, imposter syndrome or starting a new business. That came after lockdown.
Okay.
And I think it was just the whole world was in this crazy place. A lot of people have spoken about this. And I think when I started to re-enter after being kind of socially kind of just not being very social, I experienced really tough, and so I wasn't scared of doing big talks. I was scared of literally being in a car with my fiance.
Were you? Can I ask why and where that sort of came from? This was specifically after lockdown, where you became more anxious, and I've heard you speak about, but your mental health wasn't in a particularly great place post lockdown. So was that specifically because of lockdown or the restrictiveness it gave us all? Yeah,
I think I don't know. I wish I knew exactly. I did get help. They never told me why I had anxiety.
You had therapy.
I had therapy, but they taught me how to get through it.
Right.
But I don't know. I assume it's to do with lockdown. I don't want to say it is definitely, because I don't want there to be another lockdown in 40 years and then for me to be expecting it to come back.
Yeah,
but it must have been something to do with that, the way the world was. I just became fearful of so many things. Like, I used to fly literally like a lot, and then even getting on a plane for 30 minutes would be like this huge ordeal, or going through security at an airport, or as I say, being in the car with my fiance, because if we got stuck in a traffic jam, I just would be like, I'm in this small space. I don't know what it was. So it kind of became diagnosed like generalized anxiety disorder. And over time I worked through it just by learning how to just like understand that this is a feeling of anxiety is a feeling, and if you can learn to feel it and sit with it, even though it's really difficult, rather than always trying to fight it. That was the one thing. And I know it sounds quite simple, but that really did help, like understanding that. And the separate thing was like slowly but surely doing the things I was avoiding, because every time I was avoiding something, it was making it bigger and more terrifying. And as soon as I slowly but surely started exposing myself to situations that I was scared of, my brain started rewiring not to have anxiety in those moments. And it goes back to the simpleness of anxiety is there to protect you. In terms of like, if you're in the wild and there's a lion, you should feel anxious. But in our modern world, our anxiety can come up in ways where it shouldn't, and it's overactive, and you need to figure out how to professionally work through that if you're going through that. And you can. What were the benefits of therapy then? How important? Because it's interesting. Therapy is a topic we have discussed a lot on this podcast with people we've had guests in the entertainment space, sports space, YouTube space. It's interesting that anxiety does come up a lot, and therapy is something that a lot of our guests have spoken about. So what specifically was it for you that it did for you, for the viewers that might be going through something similar? I mean, firstly, it felt like the biggest analogy is like, it felt like I was going to the gym with a personal trainer rather than just YOLOing it and trying to figure out how to do these weights myself. And it's crazy how it's almost like, I don't know, what are they called? Chinese something bands or something. You know when you're like trying to pull apart something? I know what as soon as you push it in, it actually comes out. I don't know, someone will know. But basically there's so many times when it comes to things like anxiety where actually the opposite of what you think you should naturally do is the answer. Or there's a really niche thing that you would never have thought about. So you need someone who actually deals with this. And you're not the first person to get anxiety. And so, I think having that person to support me, to talk to, and then to give me the tools that I then had to work on hard. Then you can't just sit there for an hour a week. And do nothing afterwards. And then do nothing afterwards.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
You have to really work hard. You have to believe in it. You have to want to do it. But and the goal with my therapist, like for him, was never to just in particular, I think there's some great therapists who you could be with forever. But for him in particular, it was to work through this and then for me to move on.
Okay.
And he said, like, you're not going to be with me forever. I'm going to help you through this. And he did. And that was all through Zoom. This is amazing. It was all through Zoom. I've never met the guy.
Still never met the guy.
I'd love to meet him now and actually thank him because